Welcome back to Jolie's, where you can get some spicy sausage, roasted nuts, and the freshest React content on the internet. And that last one isn't 100% true today because I'm watching a video that's about a year old by DJ Peach Cobbler. Now, this is somebody I reacted to on a whim early on. He had a video that was very good, one of my favorites that I've seen since I've started reacting to videos on this channel. And in the comments, y'all kept pushing me to watch more and more of his videos. So today I'm going to do that. I might watch a couple of them back to back if I can stomach it. But I'm starting with When America Almost Had a Caesar. So if you like this content, please, I would love for this community to grow. I want to see how quickly I can get to 100 subscribers. I'm almost halfway there too, after, just a few short months of doing this. So please take the time, like this video, subscribe to this video. When you're done with this video, watch another one of my videos. I'd greatly appreciate it. And I would love for this community to grow to the point where possibly I could expand to doing this more regularly, having more of these videos out for you. As always, I firmly believe that the purpose of React content is to act as your way of re-experiencing a video you already love for the first time. So if you haven't seen this video, I would highly recommend going down to my comments, or to the video description, I should say, and clicking the link to the original video. While you're there, subscribe to DJ Peach Cobbler. He's awesome. Like his video. That would be great. And come back here when you're ready to hear my takes on it. With that, let's get into it. The Republic is nothing, a mere name without a body or form. Julius Caesar. Oh,
hi, this is going to be a more casual video, as you can tell, because I look like shit. For some reason, my idea of a casual video.
As somebody who just got put on a new shirt just to record this, I totally empathize.
Is an attempted fascist takeover of the United States.
Ooh.
Warren Buffett is a real quote factory when it comes to investing. My favorite holding period is forever. Buy into a company because you want to own it, not because you want the stock to go up.
Okay.
And, of course, buy the dip. Of course, as an investor, I have an absolutely endless collection of Warren Buffett quotes which I pull out of my ass the second I need to convince people that I know what I'm doing.
As a cultural critic, I also have quite a few quotes that I'm ready to pull out of my ass.
There was, of course, that one time my dumb whore of a wife told me that spending all my money on lottery tickets is not actually a wise investment. But,
Okay, just to give y'all guys a little bit of background, I came from a family where we often would buy a lot of lottery tickets as, I guess, a family activity, if you will, in hopes of hitting it big. I remember helping my family scratch off tickets, sitting in a car quite a few times. So, yeah, that was a little close to home, a little real for me.
the fact is, diversification is a protection against ignorance. But there's one quote I really love. It will be very relevant to the story I share today. There's class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning.
100%. The greatest achievement that the wealthy class has done, the ownership class has done, has been to convince the working class that there is no class war. And if there is a class war, you're the ones committing it. And no, we are not aggressively hoarding all the wealth and taking everything that what little you have and hoarding it for ourselves. I admire Warren Buffett because at least he says it as it is. And they are definitely winning. Just look at the wealth gain of like the top, billionaires in this country, specifically Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. Look at their holdings, their wealth gain, and in the past 10 years, and tell me that they aren't winning. Yeah, let's get into it.
Originally, I had 2 pages in my script where I detailed how exactly they were winning and the methods and all that. But, the sky's blue. Do you really need me to cite a fucking source? This is a story about war. Class war and war classic. This is a story about how war is a racket. The oldest one there is.
Oh, wow. He has the receipts, it looks like. I need to learn how to do things like this. General accused New York brokers of plotting dictatorship in the U.S. Part 1, Remember the Maine.
I want you to imagine something. At the age of 17, you're sent to war in Europe to fight what you were told is the war to end all wars. You
Ooh, if only they knew.
lose your legs to a German mine and your virginity to a French whore. You come back home,
Good times.
having been told that you made the world safe for democracy, but you struggle to feel safe in your own house at night, as the trenches of the Somme and the trench between the French whore's legs haunt you while you try to sleep. A great war is followed by a Great Depression. You ain't got no legs and no money. Disfigured and
How about two legs and two money? Also, the picture of the little boy being held by the soldiers reminds me, I had a friend who's passed, and he was an older man, and he would tell me the story about when he was a young boy. He was at an airfield when soldiers were getting back from World War II. I don't know if it was that they had won the war, or if this was after the war had ended, or if this was just them coming back for a leave from the front lines. And he talks about how these, very smelly, kind of frightening soldiers, when they saw him, he was a very young boy at the time, just like, softened up and, grabbed him and just held him, wanted to hold him close. And I just thought that was, just a reminder of, he was kind of their reminder of what they had been fighting for. But he did say it terrified him at the time. So it was just a nice little story that he would often bring up.
homeless. You go to Washington, D.C., and you are not alone. You are joined by 20,000 other disgruntled World War I veterans. You all camp at the outskirts of the city, demanding that the bonuses you were told you would be paid in 1945 instead be paid now. The federal government says no. Then the army shows up, chases you off, and burns down your camps.
Yeah, kind of Occupy Wall Street of its time, it looks like.
What do you do next? You and your 20,000 hopeless, angry, combat-trained friends.
We interrupt this program to bring you...
This video is sponsored by Surfshark VPN, and honestly, I have a history with VPNs. I used to be stationed in Turkey as a tactical femboy, and while there, I could not access Wikipedia. This blocking of the internet's greatest repository of knowledge was obviously ridiculous and unethical. But using a VPN, I could get around it, so I could enrich myself with knowledge on the production process of Boss Baby. Later, when I was stationed in Germany, I used a VPN to get around region locking, so I could watch Season 8 of Game of Thrones because HBO Go was locked to America. Now, I know what you're thinking. Can you use a VPN to watch good shows that are region locked as well? Yeah.
I hope so.
Theoretically, I haven't tried. Oh, but you're American, you say. None of this based and red-pilled circumventing of government regulations is relevant to your daily life of dunking on Eurotrash and eating food filled with chemicals Europe has banned. Well, guess what? America's getting sketchy. I don't know how to tell you this. The FBI now flags you if you use terms like Chad or Stacy, because that apparently makes you liable to commit incel terrorism.
Wait, when was this video made? Just really quick. 1 year ago. Okay, so yeah. More reasons why the election went the way it did.
Tax dollars at work, ladies and gentlemen. But by using Surfshark VPN, you can call people Chads to your heart's content, the way our founding fathers intended. Surfshark VPN has over 3,200 servers in over 100 countries, and I promise that at least one of those countries will let you call people Chad without putting you on a list, breaking down your door, and calling you a virgin. Browse the internet the way it was meant to be used, unrestricted, untracked, and privately. Get 83% off and 3 months for free by using discount code Cobbler or clicking my link in the description. Thank you, Surfshark VPN, for sponsoring this video. Smedley Butler. At the age of 16, I took 3 of those gas station boner pills at once to see what would happen.
Nothing.
But that's not relevant to the story. When Smedley Butler was 16, he enlisted in the Marine Corps and was swiftly sent to Cuba to fight in the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War is one of those wars we just sorta don't talk about, mostly because we won pretty easily and it was started for a reason that no one really gives a shit about anymore. The conflict started because the Spanish sunk a US ship off the coast of Cuba.
Very good use of editing.
I'm going to give you a very rough recounting of Butler's time in the Marine Corps, but if there's one thing that you leave this Traipse through his life with, it should be the knowledge that he did right by his men, and was damn good at his job. When Smedley Butler would end up dying, after the conclusion of our story, as a civilian to be clear, he would end up dying as the most decorated man in Marine Corps history up to that point. He's one of only 19 men to win the Medal of Honor twice. When Butler was stationed
Certified badass. Based.
in the Philippines with 50 troops under him, they had truly horrible provisions. As far as I'm aware, there was nothing to eat but hardtack, hash, coffee, and tactical femboy dick. Truly dire circumstances.
Full protein.
After Butler's requests for better provisions were repeatedly ignored by the Navy higher-ups at a base nearby, Butler set out to the base in a small boat before a typhoon suddenly appeared, nearly capsizing his ship and almost drowning Butler. But Butler would fight through the storm and return with vegetables and beef for his men, after having fought Mother Nature herself, as well as, perhaps even more frighteningly, Navy officers who did not give a shit what some Marines in buttfuck were eating for supper. That's a
The true in boss. Bureaucracy.
an uplifting story, isn't it? It's the last one in the video. Butler later in his career would install American-friendly regimes in Nicaragua and Haiti, even going so far as to rig an election in Nicaragua. It was these events which took a toll on Butler, instilling in him a deep disillusionment of the US military and its role in the world. Butler would eventually find his way to France during World War I, far later in his career. But he would not see the front lines. Butler got promoted at this point to Brigadier General and found himself in command of Camp Pontonezen, a miserable camp with deplorable living conditions. Camp Pontonezen was where American troops and supplies would enter and leave Europe, and was therefore two things simultaneously. Number one, it was a place of immeasurable importance to the war effort. Number two, it was a hellfuck muddy nightmare place where hope died. Butler did not want it.
You I guess, maybe call me ignorant, but you would think that such an important location would receive a little bit more attention from the military, but this is the United States military we're talking about.
To be in charge of a huge camp which was falling apart miles from the front. Butler wanted to be in the trenches, that's just the kind of guy he was. But he made the best of it, turning the camp around completely. He issued double rations of food, 6 blankets to a man, and would have hot soup served all day. But it wasn't all fun and games, and 6 blankets to a man, which I presume were used to construct pretty kick-ass blanket forts. At Camp Pontonezen, Butler watched men, boys really, get off the boat, go to the front, and come back broken. For the first time in Butler's long career, he had a bird's eye view of war, and it was the most brutal war in human history. Years later, Butler would remark on the experience. Gradually, it began to dawn on me to wonder, what on earth these American boys are doing getting wounded and killed and buried in France. Butler's last overseas deployment in his career would be during the Civil War in China between the very fun to say Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong. And the last great deed that Butler performed for his country was saving an American Standard Oil refinery from a fire. Butler had given his life for the Marine Corps. He joined the Corps, a bright-eyed and hairy-lipped teenager, but grew into a cynical old general. His every attempt to protect his troops landed him in hot water with the brass, and it seemed he spent more time protecting American business interests than he did American lives. He began giving speeches across the country when he returned home. One of these speeches would spell the end of his career. It was at this point that a certain Benito Mussolini had come to power in Italy. Fascism, as an ideology, rose to prominence with him. Butler, while giving a speech, shared a story he'd heard from a close friend that had ridden in a car driven by Mussolini through the
I'm going to keep using the cartoon duck. Fuck you. He's funny. I mean, yeah. He's... I mean, yeah, we should just, I don't know, take the steam out of people by... That's what cartoons on a political scale or cultural scale, I think, are really good at is, kind of like, like I said, just cutting people off a little bit.
Italian countryside. Mussolini had driven over a small child, goes the story, causing the passenger to scream.
I just thought that was a joke.
At this point, Mussolini turned to the passenger, put his hand on his knee, and said, Now, what is one death in matters of state? Now, of course, that story is not true. Mussolini said something else after he ran over the child. Italy was, at the time, friendly to America. So, a high-ranking Marine general, saying their leader ran over children, caused an international incident. However, I think if the same thing happened today, no one would even care. The chief of staff could literally say that Justin Trudeau fucks dogs, and no one would care. Butler would end up getting court-martialed due to these public comments, but the charges were dropped due to bad publicity. He was something of an American hero, as I'm sure you can imagine. But it was during this debacle he decided, finally, after over 30 years of service to the Marine Corps, to retire. Yeah, but you've probably already figured something out about Smedley Butler. This is a man that loved to fight. He just began to think he was fighting on the wrong side.
Yeah. Dear Mr. Dear President, my dear President, I have long hesitated before deciding to write you regarding the conspiracy to seize the U.S. government by the fascist group to be led by General... Oh, shoot. Okay. Come on now. All right, let's start from the beginning. My dear President, I have long hesitated before deciding to write to you regarding the conspiracy to seize the U.S. government by a fascist group to be led by General Smedley Butler at the head of 500,000 men. Pretty sizable amount of men. Definitely better numbers than January 6th. Am I right, fellas? Part 2, the business plot.
Sometimes...
Aw, kitty.
I get dangerously close to being happy. And it is in those moments that I look up the history of American labor disputes. It always really brings me back down to my base level, You see the death toll after some Pinkertons or even the
Soldiers from the Colorado National Guard and a private guard employed by Colorado Fuel and Iron Company, CF&I, attacked a tent colony of roughly 1,200 striking coal miners and their families in Ludlow, Colorado.
National Guard rolled up and started killing fuckers. And then you learn that they went on strike in the first place because they wanted a 40-hour work week. Smedley Butler was a member of many veterans organizations, and the largest of these was the American Legion. The word fascist is thrown around a lot these days, so I would like to be very clear. The American Legion was fascist in a very real and dangerous way. Yes, it's true. They bought the new Harry Potter game, and
how could they? How could they support that turf?
Legend says they thought it was pretty good, too. In 1923, while still national commander of the American Legion, Alvin Ousley was quoted by Newspaper Enterprise Association as having said, "If ever needed, the American Legion stands ready to protect the country's institutions and ideals, as the fascists dealt with obstructionists who menaced Italy. Do not forget that the fascists are to Italy what the American Legion is to the United States." When asked if he would go so far as to take over government, he replied, "Exactly that." The American Legion were also jackbooted thugs employed by capitalists to break American strikes and use nationalistic rhetoric to advocate against policies that were socialist.
How dare those people fight for their, I don't know, what would you call it, their needs and necessities? Oh my goodness. They have a thing or two coming to them. Let's see how it plans out. Maybe these business people get, what they rightfully deserve. Full control over our labor. Maybe us as slaves, even. Wow, we can only hope.
Like welfare programs or regulation of big business, like real common sense shit that we mostly have today. This is also the part of the story where the Great Depression happened, by the way. Butler's public speeches became even more inflammatory after he retired from the Marine Corps. On August 21st, 1931, at an American Legion convention in Connecticut, Butler said, "I spent 33 years being a high-class muscle man for big business, for Wall Street and the bankers. In short, I was a racketeer for capitalism. I helped in the rape of half a dozen Central American republics for the benefit of Wall Street. I had a swell racket. I was rewarded with honors, medals, promotions. I might have given Al Capone a few hints. The best he could do was operate a racket in 3 cities. The Marines operated on 3 continents." As you can imagine.
Well, truth teller right there. I like this. I mean, he had to learn the hard way, I guess. of what sins you can't sleep with.
Butler became very popular saying shit like this. His anti-business...
Wait. What was this?
Butler became very popular.
Butler assumes new role, gives women tips on love. I bet that guy knew what he was up to, I bet you he had a few things to say. I mean, he had to keep all those femboy soldiers in line.
Popular saying shit like this. His anti-business and anti-war rhetoric resonated very, very strongly with the nation recovering from the Great War and in the midst of the Great Depression. At the conclusion of World War I, all veterans received a bonus, which was set to actually be paid out in 1945.
What a swell system. I mean, I wonder how many of those soldiers would have died by 1945 with nobody to leave the money to, and there's instead, that's pretty clever.
Time when America would, of course, definitely have more money. But the economic hardship of the Great Depression caused over 20,000 veterans to begin camping at the edge of Washington, D.C. in the summer of 1932, demanding the immediate payment of these bonuses. Butler, of course, was firmly supporting them. These men would end up being referred to by the press as the Bonus Army. Butler, a lifelong Republican, became disillusioned with then-President Herbert Hoover's inaction, and so threw his support behind the Democratic candidate in the following election, Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
My man.
Whose platform was built on the New Deal. Now, the New Deal accomplished many things, all of which were, of course, communist. Did you know that
Oh, no, we can't have that.
America was communist? I figured that out during the research for this video. I'm shocked.
Well, we've seen to turning that around, haven't we? It took us 70 plus years, but oof, boy, we're back, baby, back into that capitalism machine.
You think you know a guy. I mean, really think about it. Social security? You really thought you could sneak that one by us, huh, FDR? You crippled fuck. The New Deal contained a great many measures which I just won't get into. But the big thing was regulation of banks, namely in the form of the Glass-Steagall Act and the creation of the SEC. Now, in case you were wondering, Glass-Steagall was repealed decades ago, and the SEC is now just an empty office building with a phone constantly ringing and a weird smell coming from the closet. General MacArthur, the man who would later go on to say, "Hey, let's nuke Korea, what's the worst that can happen," would take the National Guard to clear out this bonus army of disgruntled veterans and burn down their camps. It was this time, in this environment of fear, desperation, and hardship, that a man by the name of Gerald C. McGuire visited Smedley Butler at his home. This was the beginning of a series of interactions.
That guy looked like a literal fat cat. With a cigar, even. My God, if you were to draw a cartoon of a guy who's a business leader who wants to overtake the American government, you'd get pretty close to that.
That can best be summarized thusly. Hey, if I give you $1,000, can you give a speech at the American Legion convention telling everyone that FDR sucks and that we need to get back on the gold standard? I don't trust the American Legion. Who's funding you? Where's the money coming from? What's the gold standard? Get the fuck out of my house. Ah, playing hard to get, huh? McGuire would try to involve
$1,000. I mean, granted, of course, with inflation, we're probably talking something in the line of maybe 50 to 60 grand today. I just off the top of my head, I'm just guessing. But man, so little to try to get somebody to sell out so much.
Butler in myriad plots and schemes, all of which were suspiciously well financed. These schemes would grow in size, significance, and funding until McGuire wanted Butler to lead 500,000 angry veterans to the Capitol so they could scare Franklin Delano Roosevelt into appointing an assistant president. These men would be paid $10 a month.
Some would say that we have an assistant president today who was not elected, but, maybe we shouldn't get into that can of worms right now.
$35 for captains. They would be armed by the Remington Rifle Company and financed by DuPont. Butler was to use his reputation.
Of all the evil corporations of America, DuPont is the one it's like my least favorite. I guess maybe most least favorite. My favorite evil company. There's something about the name. I think that the name does a lot. I mean, they did a lot to earn their reputation, but I think the name really seals the deal. DuPont.
As an anti-war and anti-business war hero to possibly start a war which was financed by big business. Butler took this information to a journalist named Paul Comley French, who would investigate Butler's various sources. In the end, they blew the whole thing wide open, and a congressional investigation was launched. This army, thankfully, of course, was never formed and never marched on Washington. You need to understand what people, ordinary people, not your weird uncle, thought about fascism during this time. It looked like a patriotic, pragmatic, anti-communist ideology, which could provide just the kick in the pants many nations needed. People were desperate. They needed change. McGuire...
Is he talking about the 1930s? Because I don't know. It sounds like I lived through this just recently. Maybe I'm still living through this today. I don't know, man. There's something about history and repeating itself, but I ain't got time for that smart nonsense.
Admired fascism. His benefactors saw it as the only ideology which could prevent communists from taking control of America. Once again, these guys thought the New Deal was communist. According to the testimony of journalist Paul Comley French, we need a fascist government in this country, McGuire insisted, to save the nation from communists who want to tear it down and wreck all that we have built in America. The only men who have the patriotism to do it are the soldiers, and Smedley Butler is the ideal leader. He could organize 1 million men overnight. No one went down for this. This plot that implicated the DuPont Chemical Company, a prominent J.P. Morgan executive, members of the Rockefeller family, and even, get this shit, George Bush's grandfather.
The Bush family has a long history of messing with America. I'm just going to say, the story goes that if you ask anybody where they were when they heard that John F. Kennedy had been assassinated it was a flashbulb moment for them. And I know about a flashbulb moment because I lived through one, which was called December 11th. No, September 11th, 9/11. I lived through 9/11. I could tell you where I was when I heard that a plane had hit the Pentagon. I know that day pretty freaking well in my head. It's like one of the few days from high school that's as vivid as any other. Like, it's like everything else sort of like, gets mushy and crammed together. Your brain sort of like, compresses the files. Not 9/11. That day, I remember things teachers said almost verbatim. I remember watching TVs and seeing the footage and talking and discussing about the who's and the hows and the wheres and the whys. Same thing for people who lived through the Kennedy assassination, except for George Bush Sr., the president, the president after Reagan, before Clinton, who seems to not have a really specific moment or idea of when he heard that JFK had been assassinated, as though he was prepared for JFK to be assassinated. Like, maybe he needed a bit of a mental alibi. And that's just one of many things and plots that he might have been involved in. And recall, the man was the head of the CIA at the time. So, yeah, just remember, there's like certain names through history that keep rearing their ugly heads, and Bush is definitely one of them.
And, obviously if he's George Bush's grandfather, that means he's the other one's father. Reagan's butt buddy, I forget his name. Historian Sally Denton pointed out, the fascist plot which General Butler exposed did not get very far, but that plot had in it 3 elements which make successful wars and revolutions: men, guns, and money.
Yep. Right now, our current situation definitely has men and it definitely has money. Let's just see if the guns come out. Or is this little revolution that they're holding right now not one of guns, but one of information?
With God as my witness, one day, I'm going to get historians to acknowledge the 4th and most important ingredient. The men who fight and die for our country enjoy the common air and light and nothing else. It is their lot to wander with their wives and children, houseless and homeless, over the face of the earth. And when our generals appeal to their soldiers before battle to defend their ancestors' tombs and their temples against the enemy, their words are a lie and a mockery. For not a man in their audience possesses a family altar. Not one out of all those Romans owns an ancestral tomb. The truth is that they fight and die to protect the wealth and luxury of others. They are called the masters of the world, but they do not possess a single clod of earth that is truly their own. During the fall of the Roman Republic, a great topic of controversy was land reform. You'd leave your small farm and go fight abroad, and you'd return to find your wife couldn't manage it on her own because women. And it was, bought by some rich fucker who stayed home. This was a profane act. Every civilization has this collective, ideal citizen. In the Roman Republic, that citizen was a small farmer, self-reliant, disciplined, intelligent, but in a practical, grounded way, not in a gay Greek way. Gay! Yeah, this was a consolidation of wealth by a small minority who didn't need any more. But it was also an attack on sort of the...
I heard this saying, talk about, having sayings that I can pull out of my ass to seem enlightened and, very smart and everything like that. Obviously, I'm not at my smartest today. Today, I'm not my sharpest. But I think it goes, enough is a feast, or a feast is enough. No. Yeah, I think enough is a feast, which is essentially to say that if you've had enough, you've had a feast. If you have a table full of food and you eat to your heart's content and your belly's full and no food is left over, that was enough. And if you had food left over, that is when things, you need to start, looking at your situation, and maybe you should be having other people join you at your table. because you have more than enough. But there are people out there, it seems, that there is no such thing as enough. There's no limiter. They are always hungry. They will always take more. And these are the people that regulations are designed to keep in check, because without that, they will keep taking and taking and taking, because it's not enough for them to be comfortable, to be powerful. They also must see other people suffer and have less in order to feel fulfilled. And even then, I feel like they won't. They will still go, and they will keep going and keep churning. They just want to see numbers go up, even at the expense of other people. More money for them, no money for us. That's what they want.
Roman spirit. Slaves were, of course, also brought back from the great military victories, slaves that would be put to use on these large farms owned by a wealthy elite. These slaves took jobs from the lower Roman classes across the board. What is not talked about enough is that Rome expanded at the expense of the common citizen. Roman expansion diluted the collective power of labor, opened new marketplaces and trading opportunities for the wealthy, and would lead directly to a slow drain on what little middle class existed. When Carthage is burned...
Yet again, is he talking about Rome, or is he talking about like the history since the year 2000? Maybe even before that, for sure. I mean, I'm not. Okay, this is this is going to be a little bit of me walking, not necessarily walking a tightrope, but I'm not trying to like mind what I'm saying, but I will say that I'm not in favor of the how of what Trump is doing with immigration, but there is a part of me that thinks that if we are lacking so much here in America for jobs, for good jobs for people, or any jobs for people, then why are we importing cheap labor or allowing for the influx of cheap labor to come in from Mexico? Specifically, and I know that it's more than Mexico, and there's a lot to it, and I don't want to see people suffer, and I don't want to see families taking stripped apart from each other. But I don't want to use the word "but." I try to avoid using the word "but" in situations like these. So let's strike "but" from the record, unless you have a nice butt. So I don't want to see those things. I don't like that we've let this happen, and it feels as though the marching orders for the pro-immigrant side of things are coming from people who want, not from people who want to keep the families together or who want these people to come in and get a better life for themselves. Those are talking points they utilize, but there's that word again. Those are talking points they utilize. I believe they utilize them for the ends of maintaining cheap labor, because they don't want to pay dishwashers what we what an American would need to be paid. There's a lot to this, and like I said, there's a lot that's going on right now that is very dangerous, and it's come to us almost as a destination that we were heading towards probably for the past 50 years, if not longer.
Its population enslaved, its wealth plundered. Who benefits? Who truly stood to gain the most from the loss of such a massive mercantile empire? War is a racket. It's the oldest one there is. Tiberius Gracchus, the man who gave the speech that I read at the beginning of this segment,
Handsome.
was a Roman general and senator who, on campaign, saw the countryside being sold out beneath the feet of the very men who fought under him. He tried to pass land reform, and for this act he was assassinated, his head was chopped off, and he was thrown into the Tiber. Then his
many such cases.
Brother tried the same thing, and you get it.
Yes. You go after people's money, especially those people who just want more and more. That's dangerous. It's the risk you run trying to actually be a reformer, let alone a reformer, let alone a revolutionary. Is that the right way of saying that? Like I said, today I'm not at my sharpest today, but basically, heaven forbid you try to, campaign for reforms that would, have knock-on effects that would have the rich have less, or have powerful men not able to have as much power as they have. That is the most dangerous thing you can do. And the people who do that often end up with their heads in a river.
But of course, land reform was eventually passed by Julius Caesar. One of the things which influenced me to begin making videos on.
And see, this is the thing that I think is controversial for somebody who has my political persuasion. I don't like Trump, but there's that word again. But maybe what I should say is I have grievances with Trump. I don't think that he is the kind of leader I want this country to have. And I think there's going to be a lot of negative effects from the things that he wants to do. I don't think this country is going to be the same country when all is said and done. That said, he's doing the things that needed to be done, but in my opinion, in the wrong way. And we often, with our system as it is, all we do is set people up to do things in the wrong way. There's more there. I know I have more there. I really, really wish I had had a better night's sleep before watching this video. This is a really good one, and I'm glad that my community has pushed me to watch more of DJ Cobbler's videos. He is a very smart person, and I can't wait to indulge in some of them. I will say, some of them are like an hour and a half. I don't know if I can do a react that is of that length. That's, that some of the ones I want to watch are like very long. I am definitely convinced that I want to watch more of his stuff, and I will probably end up watching the ones I think are too long to react to off stream, or I'm not streaming, but you know what I mean. But yeah, this is definitely, I knew about this plot. I'm glad I knew of this moment of history, but I'm glad to get the details in the play-by-play. And the commentary. Very good commentary.
Rome was when I reached out to a historian by the name of Tim Elliott after reading an article he wrote for Politico. The article was about how Trump was like Julius Caesar. You can make that comparison. Like, it's fair in a few ways. Populists circumventing political convention and being cheered on as they do it, So I reached out to Mr. Elliott on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I gave him a piece of my fucking mind. He responded very reasonably, and we had a good discussion. He pointed me towards many resources which would later serve as the foundation of my Rome videos. I'd pull up these DMs, but I got banned from Twitter again. Now there's some guy impersonating me on there. You should follow him, though. He seems pretty cool. But I did believe, and still do believe, that the article is wildly off base, and it reads like an article written by and or for the upper middle class, or even the upper class. This is a problem with both history and journalism. These are careers which are historically well respected, but don't pay well. They require secondary education, and of course often require connections and financial support. Yeah, if you were wondering why every article on the internet reads like it was written by a weird alien bug person, that's why.
I've been saying this to my friend Danny, who my co-host of the F Tier show. Go check that out. It's at Megamoth Studios. We've just released our first real episode, and we're just really excited about the new format. But I often tell him I don't like journalists, especially, and I think there's a line in the sand. I think journalism became a very sought after like a what should I call it? Kind of a cosmetic career, I guess, if you will, like a kind of more of a bougie career after All the King's Men. No, or All the President's Men. Sorry, All the President's Men. That movie with Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. Great movie. I can't deny that. A movie so good, it kind of ruined the world in some ways, because journalism, then became a career that was sought after by affluent people because it was so cool. It was a trendy career. And I think that's really flushed us down the toilet, because now the people who are, the people of the journalist class are incentivized to maintain the status quo even more than they were before. We're always incentivized to maintain the status quo to some extent. I mean, I wouldn't want to have a complete upheaval tomorrow. I have a cat I have to feed. There's responsibilities. It's like, I want nice, slow and steady reform. I think is more of my speed. But the last people who want any sort of reform are those who have the wealth, and the people who are journalists at this point, especially the most prestigious positions, are very affluent people who have not, maybe they themselves don't have the wealth, but they are in connection with all that wealth, and probably are looking towards inheriting it, or it helps augment their career, like helps them maintain their lifestyle. It helps get them access to the people who will give them the most direct line of information. And so they're incentivized to argue for the status quo, to frame things for the status quo, and if not for the status quo, for the benefit and the interest of wealthy ownership class. I can't speak. The ownership class of people in this country and around the world. So just it's boggling. Just look at how they talked about Luigi, our cousin Luigi. And for the record, I'm very much in the murder is wrong, and it's a bad thing that it came to that. But I also believe that there's certain things that are set up that are inevitable, and you just watch them happen. It's like seeing a bad situation on the highway and knowing that you're about to witness a car crash. It's like, everything's in place, and if nobody hits their brakes, somebody's going to end up with a destroyed car, and two people's lives are going to be ruined.
It's because they most likely come from money, or were educated by people that came from money, and they work with people that come from money. Like, they're all just fucking weirdos, I think the business plot was very feasible.
Also, I a year ago, like, YouTube doesn't give you an exact date, but I think if it says 1 year, that means it's 1 year, at least 1 year from today. Wait, that YouTube does give you an exact date. What am I saying? It was published. Wait, when was this video published? April 16th. He's using the term weirdo to describe this class of people months before the weird line came out of the Kamala Harris campaign. Specifically, I would say Tim Walz really, whether he pinned it or he took the football and ran with it for as long as they let him before they put him in his place. He's right. The upper class is weird. One thing I like to say is you don't get to be cool and be from that class of people. It's just mutually exclusive, and that's like what drives them insane. They want to be cool. They want to be loved. They want to be admired. You don't get that and the money. People who get to be admired are the ones who have like no resources and still make something happen. And they have all the resources and make nothing happen. At least nothing for us.
Not because it had the backing of wealthy industrialists and bankers and a fascist organization, and not only because Smedley Butler was an incredibly popular war hero, but because over 20,000 veterans had gone to DC and asked for help, and the government shot at them. Tim Elliott's article drove me fucking crazy. It haunts me. I'm not joking. Every fucking paragraph starts with the correct thought process
Yes.
only to reach an insane conclusion. The Romans of 59 BC.
I feel like that's what it's like to like listen to most I don't want to just go, pundits you don't agree with, who are well educated or tapped in. It feels like they say the correct thing and then they turn, they're setting themselves up. It's almost like a stand-up comedy. They're saying the right thing and you think that they're going to set themselves up to say, the best thing. And then they say the worst thing and it acts like a freaking punchline from somebody with my perspective. And it happened, not to all sides but you hear it from, I've heard it from conservatives and liberals sides of the talking heads. Even my fellow leftists, sometimes some of my favorites are so single-minded in their pursuit of their goals that they can't acknowledge when somebody on the other side has a point or is doing good work. It's like they really quickly, and you'll hear it if you're listening to some of these folks. I'm not going to name names, but if you're in the podcast sphere, if you're into streamers, you probably know a few of them. And I'm not just singling out the leftists. It's just the ones I have heard the most from because that's my political persuasion. And I was definitely was in their bubble for a while. But especially once you step out and you hear, other people's perspectives, and then you go back into the bubble, you'll start hearing them really quickly hand waving away good ideas and smearing good thinkers with, just taking whatever the worst thing they've ever seen them do and just making it seem like that invalidates everything else they have to say. So I personally try to avoid that. I'm trying to do my best. Obviously there's certain people who there always will be people who rub you the wrong way. And you're just going to have to say horrible things. All you're going to say is horrible things about them. Anyways, so let's get back in. Was he reading this?
See, we're unaware they lived in a period now known as the late Roman Republic. The same will be true.
Yeah. Yet again, this video is like Nostradamus levels. And it's only because he's looking back at the past, because the history repeats itself. Or at the very least, as somebody wise once said, history may not repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And we are going through that rhyme scheme right now, I feel like. And it's becoming all the more like we hit the light speed button and we're in warp. I don't know Star Trek. But yeah, we're basically in hyperspace. It's heading towards the destination at this point. We got everything lined up. The computer made its calculations with the election, and boom. And when we come out of light speed, well, let's just hope we don't come out of it in the middle of an asteroid belt or a sun.
Whatever time historians of the future refer to as the late American Republic. If that period is to be averted, the lessons of the past must be learned. All right, obviously pretty safe, pretty pedestrian thing to say,
yeah.
But he's on the right track. So let's bring it home, Tim. Let's get it done. Come on, Tim. The lesson that we need to learn from the past, according to the end of that paragraph, is that social media leads to echo chambers, which permit sort of a mob mentality and not proper debate. That's the problem. Bug people.
I mean, it could have been worse. That's all I'm going to say. It could have been worse. I don't know how. I guess he could have been like, and the issue is there's not enough women in STEM or something.
Bug people shit. I'm sorry I'm calling you a bug person, Tim. You seem nice, but your article has been haunting me for years now. I need this. You remember when there was a minimum wage increase amendment added to the COVID stimulus bill? Still $7.25. I sort of can't fucking believe it. I made $7.25.
You and me too, brother. You and me too.
When I was 16. Look at my fucking hairline. It's
just for comparison. How am I doing? DJ?
The same. It'd been 725 for I think 10 fucking years when I was 16 too. Like, Jesus Christ, man. There was a minimum wage increase amendment added to the stimulus bill. Democrat Senator Kirsten, I already hate the name, Sinema voted like...
There's few names that make me churn in my stomach. I a few years ago I had to have a part of my small intestine removed because I had become rotten. Probably genetic, but I also think it might be because I'm living through these times and I have to see and experience people like Christian Cinema. I think my body just decided to give up on itself, and I had to fight through that. But I do feel like I'm all the more acutely aware of it, and I do feel like I go through not just emotional damage, but physical damage. I'm taking HP right now looking at this image. Oh my God. And she thinks she was so cute too, I bet.
This.
Miss Cinema.
Every article on the internet reads like it was written by and for bug people. The problem is not social media. It is not 4chan or algorithms.
This is one positive to us not reading anymore, is that we take away the thing that they've been honing, the craft they've been honing, and the system that they've been building all this time. Now they already have their hands in fertile ground of these new systems of streaming and podcasting and YouTube video creation. But I think with us turning our back to print media, to blogs, to things like that, in favor of these things that, we can are much more, I don't want to say low effort. There's a lot of effort that goes into this, but much more like, immediate, impactful, pleasurable to do. It's way easier for me to sit here and react to a video and give you my thoughts than it is for me to sit down and write an article about this video. It's just a whole different beast in terms of like immediacy, how easy it is to consume, how easy it is to digest. So one benefit is that a lot of these skills, like a lot of this propaganda skills that they've developed are at the very least, they're going to have to adapt them. And they've kind of lost possibly a generation of great hive mind workers that they have that are not equipped and probably won't retrain properly and adapt to the new situation. But just be sure that there's a new crop coming up behind that have been steeped in, the social media, YouTube, Twitch ecosystem, and will come out swinging here. They probably already are.
Algorithms or Trump or misinformation or trans people or Asian hate or anti-Semitism or the fact that Biden does clearly have dementia. The problem is that no one can buy a house anymore.
Yes.
No one can afford rent anymore.
Barely.
We just spent 2 decades fighting wars that did nothing but scar our men and line war profiteer pockets, and everyone is eating poisonous food that keeps getting more expensive, and when it inevitably makes them sick, they can't afford to be made well again. Get a fucking grip!
100%.
The Roman people did not fail the Republic.
Mm-hmm.
The Republic failed the people. Smedley Butler.
That's how it always happens. Shoe on head says it time and time again, that it's the people running for office's job to win our votes. We don't fail them, they fail us type of, and I think that is so true. Whether what Trump is doing right now, it ultimately has positive impact. I doubt it, but who knows? It could have a positive impact on the working class American or not. They at least Americans at least wanted to see change. And the last guy who offered change was Obama, and he didn't really deliver on it, at least not the way that we wanted. Love him or hate him, Trump right now is definitely making changes. He'll live. His legacy will live and die by how well these changes pan out in the next 10 years or so. But he's doing it. At the very least, you could say he's doing it. I don't think it's going to work out well. I think it's not for me, not for you. If you're watching this, probably not. If it does work out well for you, then I assume you're just somebody who's going out and getting the opposite take. I don't know. I think it's going to work out for the landowners, the owning class, the ruling class, the wealthy class. They always seem to win in America.
had seen the worst the system was capable of. He'd perpetuated some of the worst things it was capable of. But when push came to shove, he upheld his oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The wealthy have been buying our republic. They've been doing it very slowly, but in the end, they will do it very suddenly. They have financed, lobbied, and bullied our nation's military into defending their investments across the globe. They have hollowed out our government and have destroyed the faith of our people in the ability of our republic to build a better future. They have sown hopelessness, and they will reap tyranny. Sic Semper Tyrannis. Thanks for watching.
Whew. Wow, I don't know if I can even do another one of those right now. But yeah, he is 100% right. The DJ Peach Cobbler. So go check him out. Subscribe to him. Link down in the description. This was one of the best videos I've seen on this history. Really quick, one thing I want to start doing is I do want to get a little taste of what, you know, how people reacted to this. So let's just go down to the comments just really fast. Just, you know, read a few, see if we can get a couple of good thoughts in here. So this one says, no one can buy a house anymore. No one can. Okay, I think this is just quoting that last thing he said, which was so good. Holy shit, you could throw that on a history book. That was so fucking powerful. Agreed. Boom. Give you a vote. What do you do next? You and your angry combat-trained friends? I mean, I don't have legs. They have been doing very slowly, then they will do it very quickly, and now billionaires sit in the front of the cabinet members. That's true. That's so true. I mean, like, did Elon Musk even have to get appointed to anything, really? Like, I mean, he didn't have to go through any process of vetting, it seems, and he just keeps getting away with it. You know, he freaking threw out a Nazi salute, and yeah, and he didn't suffer from it. But then when people, like, you know, seize the opportunity to try something fun, they're getting banned and everything. It just truly proves that there's rules for me and rules for thee and not for me. And Elon Musk is definitely in the me class of people. Thanks for educating us on Smedley Butler. I was in the Marine Corps, and all they taught us was that he had 2 medals of honor. Like, that's all he ever was. Yeah, exactly. That's another thing that they'll do. They just whitewash away the history. They will take away. They won't fill you in on the important stuff. You know, I think Teddy Roosevelt was a pretty good president in terms of presidents, but you know, they don't tend to emphasize what he did in war and in Cuba and the Rough Riders and everything like that. And I don't think that those were ultimately good actions for the Cuban people, and, you know, just served the American, you know, people. And I think he just, you know, it's not the best look. Roman people did not fail the Republic. The Roman Republic failed the people. Subscribed. Yeah, 100%. Wait, am I subscribed here? Make sure I subscribe to him as well. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of people directly quoting the video, which is awesome. I mean, well-deserved, because he laid out some thick bars there. I once saw a video talking about world building, specifically on writing megacorps. Okay, one of the points he made was that it is incredibly difficult to convince someone to die for a paycheck. So a massive private army was illogical and would be doomed to fail. What I've learned in the years since is that you don't need to use money as your driving factor. Tell thousands of boys that they're fighting for their country, protecting their families, or spreading democracy, and they'll kick in any door at your behest. That is so true. That's the thing that I think often goes unnoticed. It's like all the paycheck has to do is keep them going. The propaganda is where the real, that's the real magic right there. Convincing people that this is the right way, this is the right thing to do. They are the heroes. They are the righteous, and everything, and everybody they're going against is the evil that wants to invade, that wants to cause cancer. And instead of us just, being on the defensive and keeping them out, maybe we should go over there and root them out from within. DJ Peach Cobbler videos are like drugs. You click on one and then you count the hours until the next one releases. I would say DJ Peach Cobbler's videos are like drugs because they open your third eye. Jesus, after 19 years in the military, 3 tours overseas, and continuing questions on how I am going to secure my future, this video almost brought me to tears on a public flight. Don't stop, Cobbler. Yeah, I mean, I watch a lot of videos on YouTube. I have some favorites, for sure. Everybody does. I think I've read enough comments here, but ultimately, it's been a minute since I've seen a video that was such a line drive. Maybe not quite a home run, but a solid line drive down. Here it was. Let's just do that. In terms of delivering a point and being concise. So with that, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and say thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. I have a playlist that's going to come up here in a moment that is to all my other reacts. Some of them are silly, some of them are serious, but I would really enjoy it. I would greatly appreciate it if you gave at least one more a watch, just to get a full sense of, who I am as a person. And I would love for you to join me on this journey that is, cultural review and documenting perhaps the end of America. Anyways, with that said, I just hope you do one thing with your day, and that is enjoy yourself.